do it now. Okay.
Good. I think we have everyone in, right? Are we good? All right. Welcome everyone. We're super excited. Happy Saturday. Thank you so much for joining and for being here with us. We wanted to just give you a heads up. We are recording this so that way people who aren't here can enjoy this later. And just as a reminder also, this is to benefit War Child UK. And so far, Agora X has raised almost £40,000, which is, with current conversion, almost $55,000 for War Child UK. So props to everyone. Thank you so much. We would appreciate any donation. No donations too small. £2, £5, £10, whatever you can afford. We would really appreciate it. So with that, I would like to talk about who's here with us today. He's definitely a name that we've all heard before, and I know we've all seen his work. Whether it's the Babel album cover, whether it's the Woman music video, or most recently with his book Fanatics, which is amazing to just rifle through and stare. And, you know, we're all missing live music. So being a part of this book and just, you know, going into it is awesome. And on Marcus's website, Gil Landry notes, he belongs where he doesn't belong. And I think that's a really powerful statement, because he started his career by sneaking into Coachella, and then he ended up getting to tour with Mumford and Sons, which is like all of our dream job. Like, we're so jealous, Marcus. Like, you know, and I think that's the really cool thing about you, is that you're a fan. Like, you're relatable to us, because we're all fans of Mumford and Sons. So it's just so cool that you are a fan and you get to work with them. So you've really gone on to achieve a variety of notable accomplishments, including No Cameras Allowed, and most recently with Fanatics. So with that, we are so appreciative of your time today. And we have questions for you. I know that the people who are attending today have questions for you as well. So we'll kind of just go back and forth and pull people from the audience to talk to you. But maybe we can start with talking about Fanatics. And if you guys don't have it yet, please buy it. It's really amazing. You can buy it at stopandfix.com. So take a look at the website, see what see if you can get a copy, but tell us about that. Tell us like what your inspiration was. Was this something like, this is 10 years of photos. Was this something that you set out to do 10 years ago? Or was this like a lightning bolt of inspiration? You know, tell us, how do you even begin to start rifling through 10 years worth of pictures? So tell us about Fanatics.
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Francesca, and all the Agora family. It's so cool to see actual faces. You know, Agora's been such a big part of this, you know, of this Mumford world, and it's great to meet all you guys, and thank you for having me on with you guys. It's an honor. And yeah, so for Fanatics, it definitely wasn't something that was planned out from the beginning. Even from the days that I was sneaking into festivals and sneaking into concerts, I always found myself just really drawn towards photographing fans. And over the years, kind of amassed too many photographs of fans. And I think it was about maybe 4 or 5 years ago that it started becoming clear, like there's enough here to do something with. And Ross and Ted and I kind of explored this idea of putting a book together. And it took 4 years of cutting him down, editing, and with everything else going on. And I think it was one of the silver linings of the pandemic was having the time to actually go in and finish it off. But yeah, I think we've been working on it as a book for about 4 years, but the photographs go back to 2010.
Yeah, and I think how many countries are these pictures from? So many.
I tried to count. I think there's 35. I know there's 35 for sure. There might be some photos in there from other countries, but 35 countries for sure. And a lot of that's thanks to the Mumford guys and some other bands that took me on tour, and I got to go and visit a lot of countries on tour, and also photograph a lot of different types of people in crowds. And it's cool. I love crowds are such a great window into a culture, because you have so many different types of people in one place. And I loved, just as much as I love shooting the bands and being on stage and photographing the musicians, you know, like you said, I'm a fan just like you guys. I still am. I'm like the luckiest fan in the world because, you know, at heart, like, you know, these guys have become some of my best friends, the people I work with, but also at the same time, I'm still a massive, massive music fan. And so, so for me, you know, there's definitely times where in the middle of tour, I'll just take a couple songs off and just go be in the middle of the crowd and be a fan again. And then that's when I, you know, it's really nice to take some photographs there too with the fan, because I see myself in the crowd so much, because I'm always torn between, you know, doing my job, which doesn't feel like it. I'm so lucky it doesn't feel like a job, versus being there to enjoy the music and the moment it's happening. And I'm so lucky that a lot of those times, those are the same thing, you know, the job and the joy of the music.
Yeah. So what is it that captures your eye about fans? Like you can be in a group or in a crowd of 100,000, 200,000 people. So like when you're in there, what's capturing your eye?
Yeah, no, totally. The stuff that gets me the most are, well, I'll put it this way. In this day and age of Instagram filters and profiles, and everyone really chooses how the perception is to the outside world, mostly via social media. And that social media then affects how you go out in real life, and you know, how you dress and how you know, everyone self-censors themselves, you know, and that's just, it's just human nature. You care about how you are perceived by the world. And what I love about photographing fans and crowds is, here's this weird place. You're in this stadium or arena or tiny little room, and you are totally allowed to not have to create this self-perception, you know?
Yeah.
Like, where else in public do you get this, you see, you know, strangers crying next to each other? Like that, you know, it doesn't happen, you know. Where else in public do you have people screaming along at the top of their lungs to these songs that mean so much to them, next to people they've never met before who are also feeling that same thing? So it's extremely personal, but extremely communal at the same time.
Yeah.
And that is so unique to me. And so for me, when I'm looking at faces in the crowd, it's telling that story, you know, which faces are telling that story of this personal journey and this collective journey happening, you know, together at the same time.
I love that. And I think that's why we all are missing live music right now, because it is that release, right? You're not an employee, you're not mom, you're not, you know, son or student. You are in the moment as a fan, right? And I think that's why we're all missing it, because it is that release, right? So Kelly Meeks is here today, and she actually has a question about your childhood. So
Okay.
I'll let Kelly ask you.
I kind of have to remember what my question was. I'm sorry. I think my son goes to where you went to high school. So I was just wondering, like, when did you start your passion? Did it start when you were really young with photography, or did it start when you started to get into the festivals and see the photography or see what you wanted to photograph?
Let's see. When I was really young, I was obsessed with taking apart stuff. And so if my parents ever didn't have their eye on me for, you know, a few minutes, I would go and disassemble the lawnmower, or disassemble the microwave, or disassemble the radio, or the VHS player. Yeah, we had, you know, VHS players back in the day, you know. And I just love taking things apart and seeing what's inside. And it just drove them nuts, because I would do it to a degree that you couldn't put it back together, and then it was ruined. The one thing that my dad never let me destroy and take apart was his analog Canon A1 camera, this 35mm camera. So instead, early on, he taught me how to use it. And so I think one of my first photographs was of a sunset, you know, something really cliche, and I think I still have it. But I would learn how to use the camera. Sorry, my brother just got out of the ocean. For a surf.
We're recording this.
Sorry. That's my brother Nolan.
Hi, Nolan.
We just got out of the water. Yeah, my dad wouldn't let me take this camera apart. So I learned how to use it. And I take photos as a young kid, and the same thing with like an old VHS camera. I remember making a little short film in 4th grade, and then I just really loved it. So I kept on doing it, making little short films and photos, and then yeah, I remember in high school convincing the new principal, because he didn't know, he came in not knowing our reputations and stuff, and so we put on our nicest kind of faces and went in like, hey, we want to make an independent study to make a feature film, and the previous principal would never have let us done it because he knew us, and but this guy's like, cool. So it just kind of evolved into making this class in high school and making a feature film in high school and going to film school, and kind of just evolved from an early age of just not being able to rip apart the camera, so learning how to use it.
Thank you.
No worries. So Marcus, you started touching on this before, but Kristen Finch has a question about how your work has changed with mobile phones, and I'll let her ask it, but this is Kristen Finch.
Hi, Kristen.
Hey, Haney. I have a request first and then a question. You took a bunch of pictures of fanatics at the Mumford & Sons show at Iceland Airwaves in 2017. So we got to see those one day.
Yeah.
But
you can't find those. That was fun. That was really cool.
I'm sure an intern can dig them up someday.
Yeah.
So, but to the question, so how for you, in the 10 plus years that you've been doing this professionally, how has your workflow changed with the full Adobe suite on mobile, that like you can be on the side of the stage at the festival uploading to your Photoshop and and edit it and like getting it to social media team, like while like right as the festival the show's going on? Has that changed for you? Like, is it happening more quickly?
I'm sorry to say it hasn't affected me whatsoever, because I haven't the social media thing is a double-edged sword, and in this case it's a shame that that there's this now kind of requirement that you have to post immediately. It's all about immediacy. And that's, the flip side of that, it's good because the people who aren't there can then, more closely partake in the live event, because they're getting it relayed more quickly. I'm much more in the camp, and this drives every band I work with crazy. And you can ask any of the managers. I'm much more of a kind of guy that will shoot less, look for a shot in a moment, and go and not use the time there to focus on post. Use the time there to focus on making a photograph that's going to transcend the immediate now crave. And then I'll go and I'll edit it, and I will then, after the night's done and the hangover subsided, then go and really focus on it and then send it off. And that, nowadays it's hard for photographers because they have to be thinking of both sides immediately. They can't be, as soon as you're editing or on your phone and you're missing shots in front of you. So I don't do too much live photography anymore. I think that's one of the reasons, because I prefer to make a photograph that will last. I'm not saying that you can't make a photograph that will last. It's just that I'm much more likely to do my job well if I'm not required to constantly be posting in the middle of the show. So it's really cool. Technology has come. And the other thing is I shoot so much film, and that completely ruins, or not ruins, but takes that option out of the picture. So yeah, so it hasn't changed my workflow that much, but it definitely has changed workflows for people who are, shooting live all the time, for sure.
Yeah. So since the technology isn't as key for you, if time machines were real, what show is the past? Even like When You Need Is Love, Beatles, like, would you go and shoot what's the dream? What would have been the show?
Like a show I've never been to. Like,
yeah, I mean, it could be like the Beatles, What You Need Is Love with the Rolling Stones, and like,
oh my God.
Like, what for you would be the one? It could be the first Group Love show. Like,
there's so many. Now I'd definitely go to I'd go to a Mozart show. Can you imagine going to like one of the classics, and seeing from when the first time that those symphonies, or whatever you call them, were done live, like people's minds must have been blown. you know. Contemporary wise, oh my gosh, there's so many. Elton John's first show in America, The Troubadour, was, I think it was 69 or 71. Like, I've heard that story so many times, and to be there would be so cool. You know, there's so many. There's so, oh my, yeah. All of, my answer is all of them. I want to be
All right.
all of them.
Yeah, you need the time machine to take you to all of them, right? So you can just, you know, go back and forth and do everything.
Oh
do all
my
the things.
gosh.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Kristen. We actually have a great question as it relates to your love for music as well, from Chris Alexander.
I'm gonna need a reminder.
You asked, well, I feel bad asking it now. What moment most defines your love of music?
Yeah,
So
what?
Mr. Alexander
like-
asked that question.
So there's lots of music, but what one moment made you realize that photographing music and being in the music, what was that defining moment that you knew that was you, that was your thing, and that was where you wanted to be?
Oh man. I mean, it was my first taste of being at live shows, and that was, you know, Coachella and Bonnaroo, and just, you know, it's kind of what I described earlier, of that feeling of like everyone's here, you know, being moved by this one collective thing. You know, it felt like the only other thing I could, you know, it seems similar, but it's very different, but not that different, is like a religious experience. And and in a way it can be, it absolutely can be. And so I think that for me, it was a serendipitous thing that I knew I loved music, and I know for sure that I can't play any instrument, you know, at all. But I knew I wanted to be around in music so much because I loved it so much. I couldn't get enough. And I also really loved photographing and making films. And I'm lucky that those two worlds intersect so much. And so I kind of, you know, really got lodged in that intersection of those two worlds, and really luckily so. But I think, you know, those very first concerts where I'm like not living at home anymore, I'm in the middle of Tennessee, I've never been in Tennessee before, I don't know anyone there, but everyone feels like a friend. And you know, that kind of just abandon and being lost in these songs that I love so much was definitely like, this is unlike anything I've ever seen before, you know, ever experienced before.
Yeah, I think all of us would agree that that collective, all right there at that moment, feeling a million different things for a million different people, but we're all together doing it. I think that's the thing I miss the most about all this, is that we can't go all be together and experience something.
I
So
totally
very
agree.
cool.
I totally agree with you.
So thank you, Krista.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you, Krista.
So Rachel Carr actually has a great question about live music as well. Go ahead, Rachel. Is Rachel on?
It could be that pesky mute button that I always forget.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that was the quote of 2020 is, you're on mute. Like,
She is in fact muted, yes.
oh no.
Let's see, ask to unmute. We'll try that.
I do. I think it's every single time I forget to unmute myself. Every time.
Oh, she's in her car.
She's in a
She's in
car.
her car. So can you go and ask it for her, Francesca?
Yeah, so she said live music is life, and we are, all of us, fans. Do you find that you fan a bit more than you photograph at the events you go to, or are you mostly a photographer musing through his lens and the music is secondary?
Like it, yeah. It's very much both, and it's funny because you know, the more I got into working with bands, the more I have to, like, you know, I'm here as a professional, but then, you know, that one song comes on and you try to sneak away and get in the crowd and just be a fan again. But on the inside, it's always like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm, like, I get to watch this song from underneath the drum kit, you know, or I get to watch this song from up in the rafters. And It's cool. It's and then when you go on long tours, you hear the music every night, and you kind of forget, how magical it is when for people seeing it for the first time, or they don't see that often. And then that's when I look in the faces of the crowds like, oh my gosh, and then I get taken back to that moment for me. And so yeah, it's definitely both. Sometimes I got to wear my professional face a bit more, and then with some bands that I'm closer with, I get to just fan out and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely.
My last Mumford and Sons concert that I was at, I actually don't have any pictures of them because I was just so like in the moment listening to music. So I have pictures of the band that played after them, and I have pictures of the bands before. But my time at during Mumford and Sons, I have no pictures, and I was right at the rail, but it's because I'm just so into it, and everything else goes out the window, right? So I definitely couldn't have your job because I would do so poorly at it. I would just be in fan mode. So,
yeah. No, I get that feeling.
So Sherry, why don't you ask your question about Coachella?
So I live, like I told you before earlier, about 30 minutes away from Coachella. Never been. But I'm always very fascinated because the fans do come through my city every year. And so I want to know what makes Coachella, besides the fact that you used to sneak into it. And I'm sure it just has good memories for you. But, it draws Hollywood. It draws like everybody from around the world. What makes Coachella? And is there a European equivalent to Coachella?
Good question. All the festivals are different. They all have their own flavors and their own things. And English festivals and American festivals especially have very different flavors. And they both have the pros and cons. Coachella, I have a special nostalgia for Coachella because it was my first festival. It's in my backyard. It's really, it's close to LA compared to other festivals. And it was this thing where, because I went to university in LA, it was this thing that everyone went to. And so it was like this adventure, like all of a sudden everyone in your world is going to, and it's like this migration, and that's the only thing everyone talks about. So it's like this, it's like summer camp, like the same way we get excited about summer camp in middle school. All of a sudden it's like summer camp, but we're in college and there's no chaperones, there's no parents driving us. It was like, it was this very, very exciting thing. And then especially not being able to get a ticket and get in, to have it to jump in, get this whole other edge of like, when you're a kid and you steal a cookie, it tastes so much better than if someone gives you a cookie or if you buy a cookie. It's the same thing with sneaking to festivals. You're just there, like the adrenaline's running. You're not supposed to be there, but the music is just that much sweeter. So Coachella itself is great because the weather's great. There's lots of like pool parties all around. So before the festival, you go to someone's pool party. After the festival, you go to someone's pool party. And it's like a big pool party with this festival in the middle of it. It's kind of great. It's clean, it's organized, it's efficient getting in and out. Usually everything's really dialed in. That's one of the pros of Coachella. One of the pros of festivals in England are that they're not that at all. So they're completely different, but they're both great. So one of my favorite festivals ever is called Glastonbury. It's like the biggest festival around. And it is excuse my language, it's a shit show. It's absolutely manic. You're living in like this much mud. Everyone's camping together. It's 5 times the size, maybe 10 times the size of Coachella. And it's 3 times as many people. It's huge. And it's not super police, and it's not, you gotta wait in line to get from one stage to the other. It's an hour walk through mud, and it's just way more carnal, which again, it's there's pros and cons to both. Sometimes it's nice to go in to Coachella, you are clean, you see some amazing music, and then you get to go swim in a pool. In Glastonbury, you're there for 5 days, and you come out and you're just caked in mud and haven't slept, and then you get to sit in traffic for 7 hours to get back to London. So they're 2 very, very different worlds of festivals, but both have their pros and cons for sure.
So Josh from Queens of the Stone Age also talks about how he used to jump into Coachella because he's from Coachella. So you ever
Cool.
him over the fence?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, they always, and so it's funny to hear you say jump into Coachella, that's like a thing. You either buy a ticket or you jump in. So
Yeah. And it's getting harder and harder every year.
Yeah.
But you know, sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Marcus, we are all Mumford & Sons fans. So I want to kind of switch to talking about Mumford & Sons. So the question I have, like, if I could ask you of this, like, paint this picture of the Babel album cover. Like, what's going on in the day? Like, it looks like a party, and you were like, hey guys, just sit here real quick, let me just shoot this picture. Like, it looks like it was just this party. There's a horse, there's Piff, there's like all this amazing stuff going on. So can you just talk about, like, tell us about the day and what was going on and how the picture came to be, because I love that. It's actually my favorite album cover. So I really love it. So I'm really excited to talk to you because it really is my most favorite album cover, and it's iconic. Like, we all know it. And so can just tell us about the day.
Sure. So that was my first job with Mumford & Sons that was not on tours. Like, kind of like a big step for me, going from shooting documentary style photography to doing a proper set with lighting and gear and, you know, a music label that, you know, is there making sure that you're getting what they need, and there's a budget, so there's a lot of pressure. And I hadn't done a shoot like that, really like that, for a band until that time. So Ross Sterling and I met on that day. He's the incredible designer for Mumford & Sons. Anything you see visually of Mumford & Sons, that's all his genius. And I've been hearing about his name for a while. So that was a really special time for when we were location scouting. I got this, you know, first time spending a whole day in a truck with him, running around London and looking at spots. And the place that we chose was a condemned, abandoned, troubled boys home, they called it. So like wayward boys would be sent there and they'd live there. And since then it's been torn down. So it was getting torn down like a couple months after the shoot. So we're like, okay, let's shoot here. It'll be kind of special because it'll never be shot in again. And then yeah, it looks like a party. We invited all of our friends and family and got, you know, a bunch of homies down there. And there's a lot of special people in that photo. I invited one person, a guy named Grim. For those of anybody that's seen No Cameras Allowed, Grim is this amazing Welsh man that picked me up hitchhiking on the way to Glastonbury, and we got really close. And then later on, he came out and snuck into Austin city limits with us in Texas, and has become a real, you know, legend in our world. And so if you look right in the middle, you'll see Grim in there as well. And
he's like right above Ted's head, right? Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And so yeah, we tried a lot of different. So we that day we shot the album cover, and we also shot a bunch of promo photos. So it was a full day shoot going around the site with just the four boys. And then we knew the album cover, we wanted to have this big, you know, party in the background. And we had everyone just kind of like moving around like crazy, kind of like this, you know, so it looks like it's a party, but it looked really funny in real life because everyone's just doing this to get that motion. And then I had the boys sit really, really still. And there's a lot of Easter eggs, which I'm sure you guys have found in that Babel cover, whether it's Piff or Grim or the flags and nautical spell out tour, TOUR in it. And there's a lot of, you know, familiar Mumford faces in the background. And if you see, if you look closely on the left side, inside the window, you'll see a man in the window, and you'll see him also in the previous Sigh No More album cover as well, who's up hidden up in the window too. So there's a bunch of little, you know, little Easter eggs and stuff.
I love that.
Yeah.
I feel like now I need a poster of it just so I can analyze it even more, like rather than just the smaller
little
cover.
Spotify. Yeah.
Yeah, like I need a big one so I can look into that. I love that. So someone also asked, who of the lads, who's the funniest? Who makes you laugh the most?
Oh man, they all have their moments. They're all very funny. They're all very funny. And different kinds of humor. Winston definitely is very quick, very witty. I'd say, yeah, Winston's made me belly laugh the most, for sure. Yeah.
And I'm sorry, that person is actually here. That was my fault. I'm sorry. I asked the question. It was someone else who wasn't here that asked another question. So Rosemary Carey, I'm so sorry that I took that.
That's okay. No, I love the answer. And thank you, Marcus, for taking the time to spend your Saturday a little bit of time with us. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Rosemary.
Yeah, we get so much joy out of seeing the band, and it's great to hear from your perspective the joy that you get in return, including those little intimate conversations and maybe, sharing a laugh or two with Winston. So, he does, quite often come off as being, kind of quiet and serious sometimes on stage, but you can see he definitely has that little, side to him that, will make everyone laugh. So thank you.
No, thank you.
So I know that, that we're wrapping up in a few minutes, but Fanatics is done. There's no more live concerts, right now. Like what's next? What are you working on that, to take up your time?
Yeah. No, good question. Now that, music's kind of come to a stall as far as live music goes, Fanatics is done, like you said. I've been spending a lot of time finishing up another feature documentary, and we're almost done with it. And it has nothing to do with music, so it's a completely different thing. But it does have some parallels to No Cameras Allowed in a weird way. And then the other thing I've been working on that I'm very excited about is I became friends in 2014 with a band from Australia. Back then they were called the Ruminators, and they became some of my best friends. And I would, whenever I go to Australia with Mumford & Sons or Coldplay, I'd always stay an extra 2 or 3 weeks and live with them and go on tour with them. And very different tour, tour buses and planes to, vans but they are just incredible. So over the years I got really close. I made music videos for them, and they eventually asked me like, hey, do you want to manage us? And I was like, no way. Like, that sounds awful. Like, I've got the best job in the music industry. I don't want to change that for the worst job. And I love you guys way too much. And so they kept on asking. I thought about, you know what? These guys have it. They're so good. They've got a little bit of following in Australia. I can't help them in Australia because I don't really know that world. But I told them, look, if you move to America and you let me film everything so we can make, an epic documentary out of it too, and I'll do everything I can to help you guys. And so they moved to America. They wrote a bunch of new songs. Their drummer stayed behind, so they got a new drummer here. And they renamed themselves Leshiv, Leshiv. And they only have a couple songs out now, and their EP's coming out this year, and they are just so good and so funny and such golden human beings that it's been a whole new world for me, not just kind of creative directing the guys and doing photos and videos, but also all the management side, all logistics and everything else. So I've been able to learn a lot from all the managers that I've been around and pick their brains, but be on the lookout for some music from a band called Leshiv that are just starting out right now.
Cool. And what about Leshiv? What's the timeline with that we should be able to see something?
We're figuring that out right now as well. They just finished the EP, and they're already back in the studio doing another 3 songs. They have 4 songs out now, and we're thinking probably spring we'll start rolling out the EP.
Cool.
And yeah, so it should be good. And once live shows happen again, you get their live show is epic. I recommend it highly.
Awesome.
Let Agora know. We'll pack the rail.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
And since this is the Cone of Silence, Marcus, you know, anything that you're working on with Mumford and Sons that you wanna tell us all. We're family.
Yeah, of course. No, it's been me, Ted, and Ross working on the stop and fix, stuff.
Yeah.
I know Mumford and Sons are focusing on using the pandemic, like kind of we all are in a way, to kind of reset and be with family and work on projects that, because they're so busy doing Mumford and Sons that they rarely have to do other stuff. I know Ted's working on a really cool, exciting project that has to do with apples. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Cider.
Great.
We just need to know how to get it.
Yeah,
Right.
me too. I'm trying to get my paws on some. And Ben's doing some amazing stuff in the venue world. It's incredible what he's doing in the venue world, despite in spite of this crazy time.
Yeah.
And
we're already planning an Agora meetup in Huntsville for when that opens. So
yes, yes. I hope to see you guys there. Meet you in person. Be great.
So I want to do a quote from Fanatics that Marcus wrote, because I feel like it resonates. It's just so beautiful. And he says, fans are what makes these stories come to life and experiences that we have the privilege of entering into when we go on tour. And he says, long live fans. And I love that, because I just feel like that captures so much of exactly who we are, right? We're all fans. We all come from different walks of life. We all have different challenges and different faults, but we all come together as fans. And Agora is an amazing group that supports each other. And that is, people go on there to talk about their mom passing away and the struggle they're having, or the birth of their child, or a wedding. There's highs and lows, and we all go through it together. And so it's just, fans are just so much more than people who like a band, right? Like we are a community. And so I just think that's so beautiful. So long live fans. And we are really, truly so appreciative of your time. We loved this.
No, thank you guys. Thanks for having me on.
I was going to say, anytime you want to just drop us new pictures in Agora, we're down. We appreciate them. When we haven't seen new work from them, right? So anytime you get like a new nugget of information or a new picture, like it's like, wow, it's so exciting. So
I might have to look through those Iceland archives, because I haven't seen those shots in a long time. But yeah, no, I will. It's been a while since I've gone to the archives, so I'm overdue. But if I find some
next year we're hoping to have a big party in O'Mara.
Yes.
That's
yeah.
So you're invited to our party in O'Mara. We'd love for you to come take pictures. So
that would be so fun. That'd be so fun. I missed that.
I'm sure we have some extra tickets. We'll get you in.
Awesome. I'll sneak it.
You sneak in.
Yeah, you can sneak in.
You have to sneak in.
Do
you still sneak in?
Not so much anymore. Sometimes the band will pull my pass and as an exercise make me sneak in. But
okay.
Keep sharp.
Yeah, keep me sharp. But no, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Francesca, for being a great moderator. Thank all you guys, and hopefully we can all be on the front rail together very soon.
Yay!
Everyone donate to War Child UK if you can. We'll shoot out the link on our website. So please donate if you can. We'd really appreciate it. So thank you again, Marcus.
Thank you guys. Everyone be well.
Thank you.
Love you all, Agora.
Bye.